Join me today as we talk about the foreign horror film Zombie 3. This is the Geek Cabal channel. My name's Bobbie, and today we're going to talk about the movie Zombie 3, which I believe is an Italian horror movie based on some things I know about Zombie 1 and 2 and like some background stuff here and some things that happened in the movie. Mainly because Italian horror movies are insane. I've talked about a couple of them before. Demons 1 and 2, and I've seen some other dandies. That's like a video unto itself, just talking about Italian horror movies. Like, they go just weird, crazy places. I'm not even 100% certain that they know where they're going. Like, it seems pretty random to me, and I don't think it's like a cultural difference. Like, I think they just have a different view on cinema in some cases, where they're just like, hey, this would be cool, let's put it in the movie. And it's like, yeah, but that doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't matter, it's a horror movie. Like, that only translated into Italian, I think, is what happens a lot of times. So, Zombie 3. Who's in it? I don't know. Didn't recognize anybody, and I'm not going to look up the cast because it's a foreign movie that I'm not going to recognize. So, sorry. I don't know what that makes me on that front, but, whatever it is, I guess it's what I am. It's not an elitist, I don't think, unless I'm only saying that because it's a foreign movie, in which case I'm an elitist towards American movies, perhaps. I guess you could make that argument, maybe. I don't know. I watch foreign movies too. Not a lot of them, but I do watch them. I watch Korean movies. It's a whole thing there too. And occasionally British movies. Got a couple Russian movies. Several Japanese movies. Most of them are Godzilla. Although I have also watched such gems as Tetsuo the Iron Man. That is a weird movie. So, enough rambling for now. So what's it about? Well, zombies. Now, you need some critical backstory here. Not for the movie itself. The movie is self-contained. Despite the fact it's called Zombie 3, this is not a sequel to any other movie. I want to be very clear on that. Because if you're watching this, I'm assuming you're probably a fan of horror movies. And if so, you have probably seen George Romero's Dawn of the Dead from 1978, I believe. 79, 78, somewhere in there. And it is considered by many to be one of, if not the best, zombie movies ever made. It is cited as heavy inspiration for the Resident Evil series. And I can't remember the name of the other zombie series that it's heavily influences. I think the second one even takes place in a mall. But, and of course the movie was remade in 2004 with Ving Rhames and Sarah Polley and some other folks. The remake is easily credited as helping to reignite the zombie genre. I believe it was the first Resident Evil movie, and 28 Days Later, like, collectively were responsible for the big push. Maybe Shaun of the Dead. Because despite being a comedy, it's actually a fairly competent zombie movie in its own right. So, what does all this have to do with anything I'm talking about, though? Well, overseas, Dawn of the Dead was released as the movie Zombie. So, and I believe Dario Argento, who's a noted Italian horror director, I believe he had a hand in helping to produce or something to that effect for Dawn of the Dead. I don't remember what it was exactly, and I might be conflating that with something else I've heard. And then a lot of the music in the movie, or all the music in the movie, is done by the band Goblin, and I think they're a European band as well. A lot of it gets shamelessly repurposed in another zombie movie that is, I believe, also an Italian zombie movie, although it doesn't have the normal wackiness of Italian horror movies. It's just a straight horror movie. It goes by many titles, because you run into that with foreign films sometimes. You'll have like 5 different titles for it. The one I mainly know it for is Hell of the Living Dead, and features probably the most gruesome zombie kill I've seen in a movie. Although Zombie 3 gives it a run for its money in this department. So, then Zombie 2 comes out a few years later. Zombie 2 is theoretically, if we consider Dawn of the Dead to also be Zombie, and not just a renaming, but also like another like two movies, two franchises, but they're the same movie kind of thing, if that makes any sense at all. Kind of like in the Halloween franchise, how Halloween 4, 5, and 6 shoot off from Halloween 1 and 2, but so do Halloween 7 and 8, and then Halloween, the later Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends all come from Halloween 1. So they all have the same source, but go different ways. So imagine that. Only Halloween 2 is actually not Halloween 2. Zombie 2 is actually a prequel to Zombie. So it takes place before and provides us with an origin for the zombies. Spoiler alert, they're voodoo zombies. Which doesn't make sense given that Dawn of the Dead is a sequel to Night of the Living Dead. And so things are already in motion by the time Dawn of the Dead happens. We don't get the origin of Night of the Living Dead. They dance around the topic quite a bit. But it seems to largely be blamed on a space probe that went out past Venus or something and picked up some weird radiation. They blew it up on its way back to Earth. But its momentum carried it to Earth anyway, because that's how space works. And so Dawn of the Dead is a sequel to Night of the Living Dead. So Dawn of the Dead has a backstory. But this is a different backstory. So imagine instead with let's use the Halloween analogy here again. And let's say that Halloween 2 let's say that Halloween was made, then Halloween 2, but then someone comes along and remakes the first Halloween in some other way to be the background to Halloween 2. That's basically what we have here. Only imagine it doesn't have Michael Myers and is in no way actually connected, because it can't be, because of, legally distinct characters and everything. So Zombie 2, they're voodoo zombies from somewhere in the Caribbean. I don't think it was Haiti, although that's theoretically where it should be. So, but at the very beginning of the movie, a boat from the islands shows up in New York City, and there's a zombie on board and ends up falling overboard. It bites a cop before it does. And when I was watching this movie for the first time with my cousin, I told him point blank, I go, right there, you just saw it. That's the beginning of the apocalypse right there. And at the end of the movie, the few people that make it off the island tune into a New York radio station, and they're being warned not to come into the city because it's being overrun by zombies. So that's exactly what happened. So Zombie 3, none of that happened. This has nothing to do with any of that. In this one, these scientists inject a corpse with some kind of virus, and I think it's a corpse. It wasn't moving, so I'm assuming it's a corpse. But then it kind of animates and melts a little bit, and then they're moving some stuff to do with the virus, and these rebels attack. One of them gets some of the virus on him. They tell the military we've got to stop it, so they find the hotel the guy managed to get to. They just take everyone out back and shoot them and bury them in a mass grave. Like the commander literally just orders them to bury them in a mass grave. And so they problem was then he takes the body and he burns it. Now, I haven't done an in-depth video about Return of the Living Dead, but if you've seen Return of the Living Dead, parts of this plot are going to start to sound a little familiar here. There was definitely some inspiration occurring here. So they burn the body. The scientists get in, they're like, who told you to burn the body? And the army guy's like, I'm going to burn the body because I can. And the guy tries to tell him, like, you don't understand what you just did. Like, the virus hasn't been neutralized. You just atomized it, and now it's going to get up in the air, and we don't know where it's going to come back down or what it's going to do. And so by burning it, he also mutated it to turn it into the zombie virus. And so it gets out. First it kills a bunch of birds and infects them. But very quickly, like, people in this whole region of whatever country this is taking place in, God only knows where it is, somewhere in Southeast Asia, I think. Although the entire cast is white. So, but like the random villagers are not. So they, so people get infected, and then they kind of hold up. They kind of hold up somewhere, but they realize they got to go out for supplies, and that's when they start to encounter. They're like, "Hey, where the hell is everybody?" Well, they're zombies, and they start to get attacked. A couple people get killed. Most of them get killed before the end. And the government's sending people in, sweeping through, just shooting everybody, zombie or not. And there's like a background plot of this radio DJ who's talking, and he's telling them, hey, the government's saying, hey, if you're in the quarantine zone, if you see the people in the white outfits, run towards them. Well, that's so they can shoot them. So the thing is, though, a couple of the zombies, well, all of them seem to be far smarter than your average zombie. You don't see many of them run like Return of the Living Dead, but some of them definitely are like using tools, climbing over things, and a couple of them talk. So they seem to be self-aware and still like all together there. And yeah, so the folks are fighting through them. There's one just like randomly absurdly gruesome kill. Like I don't want to describe it, like how bad it was. And it's just like so over the top. It just comes out of nowhere. It's just this one random character. I don't even remember her name. But it was just like, wow, so this is where we're going with all the gore effects, huh? Okay. Then, yeah, so a couple of them escape in a helicopter at the end. And the government types are still going through. And they're like, oh, we've contained the virus. You know, the army guy's like, oh, we contained the virus, all thanks to us. And the scientist's like, no, you haven't. He's like, what are you going to do, burn the bodies? He's like, that's what caused all this, you idiot. He's like, this is all directly your fault, and we have no idea where this is going to come down. It's still in the atmosphere. If it rains somewhere, we're screwed. He's like, oh, we'll just contain it again. He's like, no, you can't just keep shooting everybody. So, as the people are flying off in the helicopter at the end, the DJ's there on the radio, and he's like, well, it's a new day, folks. And for those of you listening, you know what I mean. And he turns around, you can see that he's one of the zombies. And he's like, this goes out to all my undead friends throughout the world. He's like, we got a lot of work to do. And then the two people in the helicopter are like, well, I guess the DJ's one of them now. Like, well, I guess we're going to fight to save humanity. We can't just all become zombies. But, yeah. So, the movie is somewhat absurd in several elements. Like I said, the zombies just kind of appear out of places. It's just randomly foggy everywhere. There's weird green lights sometimes when the zombies are there. It's kind of implying that there's like radioactive stuff coming off of them, but there isn't. I don't know. It's like a lot of it's just like shooting the zombies or people being shot. You don't get to see anyone like torn open like you do like in Dawn of the Dead. You know, like if people just kind of get gang piled and bitten, you know, you don't see the carnage there. Again, except for the one just like over the top vicious kill. And yeah, it's just, you know, like I said, it has nothing at all to do with Zombie 1 or 2. As far as I know, it has nothing to do with Zombie 4 or 5 either. And yes, I think there are 5 of them if I recall. I've seen parts of 5. And I know, like, the only reason, I don't even know why it's called Zombie 5. Like, the only zombies are someone this guy hallucinated at one point in the movie thanks to heat stroke. But, yeah, so I've never seen 4. I guess I gotta check that out now that I've seen the others. But, anyway, it's a, you know, it's a zombie movie. You know, it's nothing really to write home about. There's the absurdities that happen. Just the surefiredness of the military commander. Well, I guess we've got the situation well in hand, and we'll just do this and this. The scientist every step of the way is basically like, you're a buffoon. Like, we're all going to die because of you. Like, what are you doing? Hell, I'm surprised they didn't shoot the scientist, to be totally honest. But yeah, so if you want to see a zombie movie that's, it looked like it was dubbed to me, that takes place in some indiscriminate random Southeast Asian country that you're never going to know, that they're going to make it sound like it's someplace else, and you're not 100% clear what any of the rules for the zombies are, then this was the one for you. Check it out. I mean, there's worse ways to spend like an hour and a half of your life, I guess. I'd say this one's at like about a 5. It's not great. Zombie 1 and 2 are much better. I mean, Zombie 1's obviously a classic since Dawn of the Dead, but Zombie 2 is actually a mostly decent zombie movie. It does feature an insanely gruesome scene involving a wooden splinter in a person's eye, and also features, to the best of my knowledge, the only zombie versus shark combat committed to celluloid. Although the after effects of that are in a Korean zombie show. I think it's a show, it might have been a movie. He has a show. And now that I think about it, it's probably actually Japanese because it's based on an anime. But anyway, yeah, this is the movie for you. If any of that sounds fantastic or interesting, or you just want to waste an hour and a half of a zombie movie that kind of takes a little bit to get going, you don't see a whole lot of people die, and only one of them is like stupidly gruesome, then this is it. This is your movie. I'm pretty sure I watched it on Amazon Prime. If I did, there'll be a link down in the description to it. Probably also go ahead and link Zombie 2, and if Zombie's on there, I guess, because Dawn of the Dead is only available. Well, I'll link those two because I talked about them a little bit. And Dawn of the Dead is the superior movie in every way to both of those. But Zombie 2 is decent. So I'll put those down there if I can find them. I will say that Dawn of the Dead is only for purchase or rent on any streaming service at the moment, because there were some issues with the rights, and I don't know if those have been completely, no pun intended, fleshed out. But it is available for rent and purchase. So hopefully at some point it'll just be on Prime or one of the other streaming services. I've got DVDs of it, but some of the other formats of that movie are really expensive, really valuable in the secondary market, by the way. Because similar to the streaming rights, it wasn't being made physical versions for a number of years either. So if I can find links to those, they'll be down there too. But yeah, the Zombie 1 and 2 are worth checking out. Zombie 3, I mean, you can. Just, hopefully I've given you the correct impression of what you're in for if you do check it out. Like I said, I'd give it probably like a 5. It's not great. It's not terrible, but it's not great. So, if you're a big zombie fan, it's probably worth checking out. If you're a horror fan, it is maybe worth checking out. But other than that, I don't know. It's up to you on this one. I can't in good conscience recommend it. But that's about all I've got to say on that one. So let me know what you think down in the comments. Have you seen any of the 3 movies I've mentioned? Actually, I mentioned several movies, but I mainly mean Dawn of the Dead, Zombie 2, and Zombie 3. Or are there any other zombie movies that you're big fans of that I haven't talked about? Let me know. I'll check them out if I haven't seen them. At some point, I am going to do a much longer video about different zombie movies, like the differences between the zombies, and are the chances of that version of the zombie apocalypse actually occurring? Like, what are the real odds of that? What's the ultimate nightmare scenario? I actually already know which one I'm going to say that is. But you have to see that in the bigger video. So anyway, like I said, hit me up in the comments, anything like that. Like, share, subscribe. Sharing and commenting on things that help us grow the channel. I always appreciate it. But other than that, just remember, since this is Zombie 3, I guess technically maybe kind of related to Zombie, this kind of fits. Just remember, when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.